Welcome everyone to tonight's special Deafening devotion. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about noise pollution in India. Who has a voice when it comes to noise? Do religious organizations have the right to bend the rules when it comes to noise pollution? What about weddings? What about some of those religious music that we hear at temples, at gurudwaras, at mosques? How accurate or how is that an infringement of people's rights? Well, first of all, let's break this down. Be it an all-night wedding, a religious sing-along, or bumper-to-bumper traffic, the horns that we always hear in India's traffic, or perhaps an enthusiast renovating his home until late at night. India is one of the loudest countries in the world, according to a report. But a Bollywood singer's latest tweet, Sonu Nigam, remarking on the decibel level of loudspeakers tied atop to a place of worship to call the faithful prayer, unleashed a flurry of angry reactions on social media. But whether it's a temple or a mosque, an election campaign, or a traffic jam, what makes Indians so self-defensive when it comes for their right to make noise? Padma Rao explains.
It's sunrise and many religions dictate that the devout are called to prayer. Most mosques and temples all over India follow suit. But the melodious sound of temple bells in the olden days has long been replaced by 10,000-watt speakers tied to the towers of places of worship, behemoths that shake, not stir people to prayer, often killing all feelings of real devotion. Cars honk incessantly, festivals are marked by deafening fireworks, auto rickshaw speakers blare out movie songs to promote upcoming politicians. A birthday, a wedding, reason enough to keep the world awake all night. Why, there's no rest even for the dead when their family members and friends decide to let the entire city know how badly they miss them by transmitting their grief via surround sound. There's construction in rapidly developing cities and cacophony galore. Little wonder that common birds like sparrows have disappeared altogether. Domestic animals too display signs of stress during festivals that are celebrated with fireworks. As for game sanctuaries, it's hardly a wonder that wild animals run miles to get away from visitors, exhibiting their excitement at being there over ghetto blasters. There are laws galore to govern different noise level restrictions for different areas, but authorities say that it is difficult to enforce them, especially when there is a personal celebration or a tragedy involved. And if it's a religious celebration, be it of any faith, that, in sensitive India, is the toughest to quieten down. Bureau Report, WION.
Well, all of this started this morning when Bollywood singer Sonu Nigam tweeted about a Muslim prayer, the azan, which woke him up, and he questioned the practice of using forced religiousness. Here's what he said, quote, "God bless everyone. I'm not a Muslim, and I have to be woken up by the azan in the morning. When will this forced religiousness end in India? And by the way, Muhammad did not have electricity when he made Islam. Why do I have to have this cacophony after Edison?" He also continued saying, quote, "I don't believe in any temple or gurudwara using electricity to wake up people who don't follow the religion." Why then? Honest, true. Is what Sonu Nigam tweeted out. Well, those tweets got retweeted at least 15,000 times, evoking a string of reaction on Twitterati. So let's go to our guests to review the story and talk about noise pollution, the deafening devotion. To get perspective, we have Sumaira Abdulali with the Avaz Foundation in Mumbai, and we also have Rahul Ishwar, an author and activist, joining us from Kerala. All right, Rahul, let me first start with you. What do we make of this about, the noise pollution in India and, the rights of religious organizations? I mean, do they have a say? How difficult or how easy is it for them to bend the rules? Rahul.
We are all fans of Sonu Nigam. We all love his songs. But having said that, see, India is a land of great diversity. We should be proud about the fact that India is one of the ancient-most civilizations and the home to one of the first Christian communities and Islamic communities in the world. We are perhaps the oldest nation outside Saudi Arabia where the holy azan was played. India is a secular as well as spiritual country. Article 25 is a fundamental right. As you rightly said, there needs to be some kind of balance between a person's right to privacy, a person's right to sleep, as many people call in Twitter, against a person's right to pray. We need to balance it out. And I believe, as a proud practicing Hindu, I believe azan is music. I believe church bells are music. I believe Buddhist chants are music to my ears. And we should have a spiritual kind of
All right, let me now get perspective from Sumaira Abdul Ali. Your thoughts with regard to that? I mean, was it just the wording perhaps that Sonu Nigam, tweeted that was really sparking this controversy? But the bigger picture is, what right do mosques and gurudwaras and temples and churches, when it comes to playing their religious music, how does that interfere with the regulations and rules set by the local governing authorities? Sumaira.
Well, I think the rules are very clear. In fact, there isn't actually a controversy at all. And it's unfortunate that it's being portrayed as a controversy, because the Supreme Court settled this issue in 2000 and again in 2005, when they said that religion is not a ground for breaking noise pollution rules. All religious places are silent zones, and the Bombay High Court reiterated that in 2016 in August, when they passed an order that no silent zone rules can be broken because of religion. I have taken readings across many religious places, including masjids, temples, churches, gurdwaras, all of them, and all of them are at extremely high decibel levels. I agree with Sonu Nigam that in ancient days there was no electricity, there were no loudspeakers, and it was not possible to have religious prayers at such high decibel levels. Having said that, I think it's very unfortunate that he used terminology and words which have made it into a divisive issue. Noise pollution is a health issue. We have laws of the country. We are all bound by them. We are all affected equally by the health effects of noise pollution, and we all need to ensure that they are maintained and met, whether it's an azan or anything else.
Let me also ask you a follow-up question with regards to that. Whenever you go to any of the big metros in India, specifically Mumbai, New Delhi, Chennai, Bengaluru, Calcutta, whether it's weddings, whether it's bursting firecrackers, or hearing those election announcements on those loudspeakers, or any kind of a message to get out to the public, certainly India, for the most part, is not a quiet place by any means. So keeping aside the religious part of it, or the noises that we hear from churches, or the music from mosques, or the temple prayers, whatever, it is very difficult, wherever you are in India. So how difficult is it, though, for the police and the governing authorities to make sure that they keep that level of decibels that is appropriate for the general public's well-being?
It's extremely difficult, firstly because when I started working on noise pollution in 2003, the police were not even aware that they are supposed to keep the levels down. Everybody believed that noise doesn't affect Indians because we're a noisy country and we're used to it. But subsequent tests and results and reports of even the WHO and doctors here have shown that we are not immune to it at all. In fact, we show the highest percentage of hearing loss in the world. In a place like Mumbai, where the commute is so noisy, whether it's road traffic or rail traffic, people are suffering. They can't rest all through the day, and you see it in the form of road rage. You also find that people are suffering other health effects, which we may not correlate with noise because we have no idea that it's to do with it, and it's very unfortunate that we are making it into a divisive issue. And even politicians who are supposed to implement the noise rules, who have set these noise rules based on health standards themselves, rather than figuring out that it's for the good of their own citizens, for the health of people, are telling people that if it's for a little while every now and then, it doesn't matter. It matters. It makes you deaf, and because it makes you deaf, you have to hear your enjoyment, your festivities, and even your background noise levels at higher levels every now and then. We make even infants deaf by exposing them to such loud noise levels, which is very unfortunate. And when Indians go abroad, as they often do, for career reasons, they find very often that they speak louder than everybody else, and they can't understand things in meetings sometimes because of the hearing deficiency which they face due to the high noise levels.
All right, well, interestingly,
I think that's a really terrible way for us to look at it.
Well, interestingly, you hit a point that we're about to talk about. It's not only a question of faith, it's also a question about the effects on noise pollution on your health. According to a report, in fact, by the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, noise pollution can cause many things for your health, hypertension, and a lot of exposure. Prolonged exposures could also even lead to heart disease. Other short-term side effects include dizziness, nausea, anxiety. So in more ways than one, noise certainly can kill. Let me go to Rahul now. The health effects, Rahul. Talk about that. You know, it's not only about a question of a situation where we're preventing perhaps, religious places from not playing it, but ultimately to people like you and me, those who live around places that are typically louder than others, it's killing your health.
Definitely, nobody disputes that health point. But having said that, India has to balance, or we all have to balance between a matter of faith and health. Whenever there is a problem, we can always approach it in a different way altogether. So, for example, I am a proud practicing Hindu, as I told, but when there is too much noise from the temple around, I go and request them saying that, see, I have a newborn baby who's hardly 90 days old. So, you have to be a bit more sensitive. That's how you go about it. And even we can request our Muslim brothers or church bells or chants to reduce the volume. Moderation is what we need, not any kind of condemnation. When you go to condemnation, it only invokes a counter reaction which is not beneficial. So moderation and requesting and inspiring for moderation is a right approach we should do. And we should do that from a believer's paradigm and a faith-friendly paradigm. Otherwise, if you are taking a leftist or a liberal or an atheist paradigm and saying that it is all about health and you shouldn't do your festivities, people are not going to listen. That's what's happening to Diwali. That's what's happening to many people say the colorless Holi. That's what's happening to temple festivals. We are fighting against it. So please don't have such an insensitivity where it provokes a counter reaction from believers and get them into a defensive mode. You can definitely educate them. Some kind of awareness should be needed. The law shouldn't be used, or the noise law shouldn't be used to thrust down the throat of any particular person and say that, your faith doesn't matter. It is only important that the noise laws are made. So you have to strike a balance between these two, and you have to be sensitive. The most important thing, I believe Sonu Nigamji unfortunately missed. I believe we all will concede this. He lacked that, he's a very senior person in the industry. He lacked that kind of mature, respectful sensitivity through which we could have made it a very much more deeper discussion. But rather than becoming a deeper discussion, it became divisive because it had some kind of a negativity associated with it. So please remember, these all things are music. Sometimes even music, when you are hearing it in high decibels, whether even it is a best of songs, it may cause us discomfort. So music is not the problem. The loudness is the problem. Music or azan or temple bells are not the problem, but the decibel is the problem. We should reduce decibel, and we should debate regarding how much decibels we can handle, and not regarding condemning any faith for that matter, because India is a land of all religions, and all religions have made India their homeland too.
All right. Well, speaking of that, talking about rules governing the loud noises and controlling the decibel level, where some of them are in fact explicit. They form a part of the Criminal Procedure Code and carry jail time of nearly 6 months should there be a violation, as some of these rules are broken so frequently that you may not even be aware that you are violating the law. For example, the use of loudspeakers. Well, that's banned from 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, the use of firecrackers also banned after 10 o'clock at night. In fact, the level for loudspeakers has been fixed at 65 decibels only. So these laws already exist. The question is, how are they being implemented and what happens to those violators? But first, let's get some quick reaction from people about this noise pollution controversy. All right, we're having some trouble getting that reaction, so we'll come back to that in a second. But let me now go back to Rahul with regards to that. Rahul, let's talk about the situation about implementing and making sure how these rules can be fixed. We talked about, many people are probably breaking the law without even realizing it. The 10 to 6 window, not using the firecrackers after 10 o'clock at night, and keeping it at that level. The loudspeakers have to be less than 65 decibels. I mean, many people, you've seen people walking around Diwali time perhaps, or Ramadan, or whatever, festivals that go on, or wedding celebrations, parties, and certainly it seems like a lot of people do break the laws, just don't even realize that they are in fact breaking those rules.
the most important thing regarding these kind of matters is awareness. We have two hands of social change. One hand is awareness, second hand is law implementation. We need to balance that both. One hand for awareness creation regarding, rightly as ma'am beautifully articulated, these kind of health issues should be invoked even in schools, but that shouldn't be done in a way as a kind of disrespect towards any sentiments for that matter. And people should be made aware, and they should be suggested better ways to play Diwali. They should be suggested better ways to play Holi. They should be suggested better ways of Eid or Ramzan, or if there are some other issues involved. I believe many a times, I'm a religious right-wing activist, the courts have been a bit insensitive in these kind of matters, and they have tried for overreaching. We saw what happened in Jallikattu. The whole reaction, the Jallikattu thing backfired because they were too tight. You cannot make rules which are insensitive. You cannot make rules which are too tight around the neck of the believers. Then there will be a counter reaction which will be very tough for any government institution or even courts to control. That's what happened in Jallikattu. Many people reacted to comply in that way. The Shabarimala case, the elephants in temple and firecrackers in temple case, these things can provoke counter reactions. That the so-called majority is the voiceless majority who wants these kind of festivities, because they are deeply embedded in culture for centuries, not for years, not for decades, but for centuries.
Right.
So we should have some kind of a dexterity in dealing with these things.
Let me go to Sumaira with regards to that same question. A lot of people probably violate the rules without even realizing that they're breaking the law. The 10 to 6 window, not bursting firecrackers, the loudspeakers. I mean, every street corner that you go to, especially during festival time or wedding time, there's certainly one party or the other that is violating those rules. People just don't even realize that, and that is causing and contributing to the noise pollution, which we already talked about is detrimental to your health. I mean, is awareness just not there? Do people not realize that? Or could stricter rules and regulations be put into effect? Are the police, should they be held accountable for not making people follow these rules?
Well, I think it's a combination of all these things. I agree with Rahul that you definitely need much more awareness, and I think the awareness has started from Bombay, from Mumbai. In Mumbai was the only city last year where the noise levels went down over the entire festival season, including Ganpati, Diwali, Eid-e-Milad, and people from the very communities which we are talking about, even Eid-e-Milad, people carried placards asking their own community members not to use loudspeakers. That doesn't mean there weren't any violations. There were still many willful violators. But the noise levels, the awareness levels in Mumbai have significantly changed over the last decade. The police take action at 10 o'clock if anybody calls, and people call as a matter of routine, and now everybody knows it. I hope this is going to go to the whole country. And it starts with awareness, but implementation and enforcement is very important, because when you say awareness, you mean awareness of people, and you also mean awareness from implementation authorities. So they need to be aware of what they have to implement, at what level, and what appropriate action they have to take. Because people can be aware, but one person who decides to willfully break the law, no matter how aware he is, can disturb a whole community.
Right.
And that is especially acute in a place like Mumbai, which has one of the densest populations in the world. So we need a combination of both, and that combination is working. Last year, the Environment Secretary and the police thanked citizens of Mumbai for making noise pollution a citizens' movement here. And I think that's what we need to see in the rest of the country.
Well, the Bombay High Court, in fact, ruled that some places...
Like Sonu Nigam's, while they raise an important...
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I said tweets like Sonu Nigam's, while they raise a very important issue, and I do support it to the extent that I believe that everybody has to comply with the law. The Muslim community has come forward during Eid-e-Milad to try and control noise levels, for which I'm very grateful. Some community leaders have contacted me and asked voluntarily to stop using loudspeakers and start using distributed sound systems, which shows the awareness levels. And I think those who choose not to do it, in Mumbai at least, definitely have to be hauled up and brought into line, because it's in the interest of their own community too. And I have got calls from community members, Muslims, who have wanted noise levels reduced in their areas. And the same thing holds true for Ganpati, for Diwali, for everything. People have called me. Slum dwellers are the most affected, contrary to what people believe. They can't go indoors, they can't shut their doors, they can't shut out the noise. they want the noise levels reduced.
Right.
Just as people who live in expensive, luxurious apartments also want noise levels reduced. It's a health issue. It's a health issue for all. We need everyone to be aware. We need everyone to be sensitive. Just like Rahul says, we need them to be sensitive to other people's health.
Right. Well, the Bombay High Court, wanted to talk about this issue. Last year, it implemented a rule about silent zones, that if you're 100 meters away from hospitals or schools or courts, any type of sound amplification is banned in those silent zones. So no blasting crackers, no loud music, because it is close to a place of learning or a place where patients are being kept. But another point that we really haven't touched on is also animals. Pets and domestic animals, and we see a lot of stray animals. A lot of people during Diwali, I know, are always talking about not bursting firecrackers, because yes, it is celebration, it is festive, but not only is the noise detrimental to human health, but it also affects those who really can't speak. It also affects the animals. Let's dwell on that a little bit. Let me go to Rahul real quick. We have a few minutes left, so let's talk about the impact to not just humans, but also to our four-legged friends.
See, please remember, all these celebrations were born centuries and millenniums ago,
right,
where population levels were very low. Even if you check the population levels of India back in 1947, we hardly had 33 crore people in India. And right now our population is 125 crores.
Right.
So as we move forward, as the population grows, we need to have many adjustments and adaptations made into the modern thing. Take the case of Diwali. 500 years back, Diwali would have been a totally different celebration altogether, where our population were hardly in millions or maybe even in lakhs. So the situation has changed. People have to adapt. And I believe, as a person who represents religion and a religious activist or a right-wing activist, we have the responsibility to learn from feedbacks.
Right.
I believe so things should be taken as a feedback, maybe which should be re-articulated, but that feedback should be taken, and all the kind of necessary caution should be taken from people like me,
right,
whether they are Hindus or Christians.
All right. Well, thank you both to our guests for your discussion about noise pollution and the impacts on both humans as well as the rules to implement them. We appreciate your time.